This is the Dynasty Roundtable podcast, and tonight we're going back a little bit so we can go forward. I know some of y'all have your rookie drafts in the summertime. So now that rookie season for some is come and gone, rookie season is coming for some others coming up here. So we thought we would revisit the 2026 class. This is also applicable for redraft as well, to kind of give our takes here about which rookies we think will be best suited for redraft. But obviously, this is the Dynasty Roundtable, so we come at it from primarily a dynasty lens. So we're going to give you our top 50 rookie rankings update here in June. And before we do that, though, Matt Babich, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing great. Told you backstage, that I wasn't feeling super hot at the end of the workday. Heat issues and the AC issues at the office, and we're fixing it with the old college method, which is pound of beer, light beer. Yeah, you can make fun of me if you'd like, but we're fixing my headache the old college way, which is by getting a little buzz going. Ready to talk rookies. I was updating my rookie rankings, and I was looking at the sheet that we have collaborating together, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we haven't actually done a ranking show. Because if you would have asked me, have we done a ranking show since the draft, I would have been like, yeah, of course we have. But I don't think we've done an official rankings roundup since the draft. So it was fun to get back into rookie rankings and focusing on that. So it'll be a fun show.
Yeah, I think we've done a mock draft, which kind of served as a ranking show. So if you want to count that, we did. But yeah, we haven't done a here are our rookie rankings in tiers, which really they're my tiers because that I'm the guy who does the tiers around here, and Matt kind of agrees or disagrees as we go through it. But anyway, yeah, so it'll be fun to break this down tonight. Before we get going, though, if you could do us a favor, click the like button, subscribe, click the alarm bell to be notified of new content when it drops. That helps us out quite a bit, and it doesn't cost you a thing, so you should do that. And let's get into it, and let's start with maybe the most obvious tier. I've been doing this for 8 years. This is probably the most obvious tier one, but this is a disagreement that we've had, and we're also going to include Fernando Mendoza in this tier one because Matt Babich has Fernando Mendoza number one. I have Jeremiah Love number one. I would say 99% of fantasy analysts have Jeremiah Love at one. But Matt Babich, I know you've said this before on this channel. Why do you have Fernando Mendoza ranked ahead of Jeremiah Love?
I've always liked to be a little different, but I'm always going to lean towards the quarterback with elite long-term potential in Superflex leagues. And I think Fernando Mendoza has that. He has all the situational factors that you would want. I recognize that as of right this moment, Las Vegas is not the most desirable destination, but they are doing what they need to do to retool their offensive line and get more weapons around them. Fernando, he has Brock Bowers to throw to. The receiver situation's a little sketchy. You got to think that maybe they'd be a candidate for somebody on for a cheap pick. Maybe a team that's trying to offload a contract, anything like that. I got to think that they're going to be in the market to at least try and gain some talent. But if not, I think the situation is very comparable to what Drake May stepped into New England. Many people overthought that and said that this is a really bad situation. They had Jacoby Brissett. We don't know when he's going to start, blah, blah, blah. We have a lot of the same factors in Las Vegas, and Clint Kubiak at the helm is truly what drives a lot of my confidence because he's an incredible play caller. He's going to put Fernando Mendoza in situations where he's going to succeed. He has the height. He has the ability to get out and run and create some rushing yards. He has the ability and the size to get some goal line touchdowns. He has an offense that's going to be playing from behind a lot for the next year or so at minimum. And you couple that all with somebody who showed, albeit, in his senior year in Indiana, that he can make all these throws across the field. He's very composed. He's smart. When he steps into an NFL field, he's going to absorb all of this information. I'm very confident about his talent as a quarterback. And so not only, he's a 1A, 1B in terms of just overall prospect, and then you factor in a rebuilding team is going to lean towards a 3 to 6 year window than a 1 to 3 year window, which in that case, if I'm a true rebuilding team, I'm not drafting Jeremiah Love over Fernando Mendoza, because I'm going to be in a situation where I might have to try and offload Jeremiah Love in a couple of years as he gets older. And if I haven't figured this thing out, I'm in a lot of trouble. Mendoza, you get a bridge to where you're not even really forced to put him in your lineup for the first few weeks. And you have a quarterback that could be a top 12 to 16 guy, maybe better, over the next 10 plus years. So for all those reasons, I slightly lean Fernando Mendoza. I've said it once. I'll reiterate again. If you have Jeremiah Love at 101, like a lot of other people, I'm not going to shake my head at it. This is my personal opinion, and I think it's incredibly close.
Yeah, I'll say that if you're at the 101, it depends on how bad your situation is. Like if you're a full tear it down, it's going to be a few years. I completely agree with you, and I think that there's a unique opportunity this year because the perception from the public is, "Oh my god, the 101 is way up here and the 102." Sometimes it's not even Fernando Mendoza that I saw going at the 102 in my rookie drafts. Sometimes it was those wide receivers and then Fernando Mendoza. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of, I want to break each asset, each elite asset into as many possible assets as I possibly can, that 101 this year is extremely valuable, especially if there's a contending team that wants to come up there and get that pick. And then tearing down to Fernando Mendoza, you get the value, you get the security, and you get more pieces on top of it, which is what you're aiming to do as a rebuilding team anyway. But if you're just a few moves away and you somehow wound up with the 101, if you got bad luck with injuries or whatever, then sure, Jeremiah Love, I think at the 101 is exactly what I would do 99% of the time. But I agree with you. Fernando Mendoza is the safe value play because his value is insulated for at least a year. I mean, I've pointed this out a few times. Cam Ward is the ultimate example from last year, right? Cam Ward was horrible, but he was the number one overall pick, so he still maintains that value through this year. And there's still a lot of optimism with Cam Ward heading into this year because guess what? They added Carnell Tate. They brought in Brian Dable as an offensive coordinator, who's a much better offensive coordinator than a head coach. So there's still some value in that pick, and that you're going to see the exact same thing with Fernando Mendoza. I've said it too about Fernando Mendoza. Heavy RPO scheme in college, likely going to be slow going to start, so there's going to be a long buy window. But I share your optimism with Fernando Mendoza because 6'5", 230, tactical scrambler. That not only plays for fantasy football, but that plays at the NFL level too, as well. Like I just believe it does. Yeah. So
Kubiak and Cousins being his two main guys is going to be so beneficial to him. I mean, I don't know if he realizes yet how important Kirk Cousins is going to be to get a guy that seasoned to be able to help with that transition. And it's a good thing that, Mendoza's not going to have to play right away because he's going to be able to sit back and learn. And last thing on Jeremiah Love is if you can't get your hands on Jeremiah Love and you're absolutely dying to, do not be shocked if he has that first 8-week value dip that we saw with Jonathan Taylor a few years ago with how bad Arizona is going to be. And the signing of Tyler Algier can be real messy in that backfield early on. Rest assured, I'm not worried about his longer-term value in Arizona. I think he's the guy. But don't be shocked if he starts off slow because of, lack of scoring opportunities and getting adjusted to the NFL.
Yep. If Tyler Algier is good enough to take goal line touches away from Bijan Robinson, he's good enough to take goal line touches away from, Jeremiah Love. So I've said it. I've said that more than once. And Arizona, I have to think, is not going to be the most potent offense this year. They did upgrade the offensive line, but new head coach, new scheme. It's probably going to be there's going to be an adjustment period for Jeremiah Love. I can promise you that. That's a great point. Let's move on down to my tier 2, which does include Fernando Mendoza, but we won't bring him up. Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon. That is my tier 2. Is there any conversation here about who is in the tier 2? Should we
I
throw
think this is
Jadarian
pretty.
Price in there, or
I think
is
this is
it
pretty
pretty?
consensus at this point. The order of which is going to depend. It seems that it's been pretty clearly consensus that Mekhi Lemon is third amongst those three, and then the order of Jordan Tyson and Carnell Tate appears to be what's most frequently switching. And aptly enough, you have Tate first. I have Tate first. You have Tyson first. And again, similarly to the discussion with Love and Mendoza, like you could spew all your arguments for Jordan Tyson, and I'm going to understand, and I'm going to have my opinions with Carnell Tate, and they're both pretty rational sides of the argument. So I think this one's pretty clear cut.
Yeah, on the Carnell Tate Jordan Tyson thing, Carnell Tate reminded me of a wide receiver who can win deep down the field with ease, but the shorter to intermediate stuff I had a question mark. And it was basically the exact opposite with Jordan Tyson. I thought Jordan Tyson was about as clean of a route runner as there was as a prospect. I think he's the best route runner in this class. It's just my opinion. I know people will disagree with that. I think Jordan Tyson would have been clearly ahead of Carnell Tate if he didn't have the injury concerns heading in, but that's just, again, my opinion. And Mekhi Lemon too. I've seen Mekhi Lemon slip a little bit in rookie drafts, and I'm not really sure why. Like I've seen him slip to the 7th, 8th pick because there have been a few people pushing Ty Simpson up, and we'll get to Ty Simpson and Jadarian Price, who I like, and I like the situation, but I wonder long term how good is that going to be, and there's some risk there that we'll talk about. But we'll move on to tier. I call it tier 3A. And this is the Jadarian Price tier. And I'm just curious because we both have Jadarian Price at 6, but my concern is that Zach Charbonnet is there. They like Zach Charbonnet enough that they are willing to trade away, or not trade away, but let Kenneth Walker walk in free agency to Kansas City, Super Bowl MVP. And I think that there's some real risk here, and I like Jadarian Price, but if he doesn't fire right away, I mean, you do have that Zach Charbonnet waiting in the wings. I know this year the pathway's clear, but in the not too distant future, it could be a lot murkier in Seattle.
Yeah, I have a more positive early on outlook for Jadarian Price. I think it's going to be later rather than sooner before Charbonnet truly gets back in a groove in this backfield. And plus, I'm not a big fan of the talent anyway. I'm a bigger fan of the talent of Jadarian Price than others. If you go out there and search, between different analysts and their takes, you'll find a good amount of them that really dislike the profile of Jadarian Price. Yet still, just with the draft capital and the opportunity, he's very clearly right up in this range. We have a very unlucky 666 across your solo ranking, my solo ranking, and our joint ranking. But that's been my experience throughout rookie drafts so far is Jadarian Price almost consistently at the 1-6. Sometimes you may get one of these next two players to come up and jump him, but he's right there smack dab in the middle. I almost would never take him over Mekhi Lemon or anyone in the tier 2. And I'm pretty confident in taking him over a Casey Concepcion, for example.
Yeah, and I love Casey Concepcion. I just didn't love the landing
as
spot
a talent, right?
And the future there is, I mean, who knows, right? Which is why I think, Jadarian Price landing with the Seahawks, I mean, we have to put him here. But again, if he's good enough, there is a world too where if he hits right away and then potentially Zach Charbonnet is an afterthought. But if I were buying one of these two players at cost right now in this backfield, yeah, I'd be kicking the tires on Zach Charbonnet, like just seeing what is the value, because the value's pretty much at a really low point, because you're probably like the crappy thing though is you're likely going to miss the entire season, or almost all the season. Zach Charbonnet is, so there's that too to consider, but that's also why he's cheap. But anyway, moving on to 3B. So tier 3B is what I call it anyway. We have Casey Concepcion, Ty Simpson, Kenyon Sadiq, Omar Cooper Jr., Denzel Boston, and Eli Stowers, and we're pretty much in lockstep with this tier. We're right there the same with Casey Concepcion and Ty Simpson. I'm one spot higher on Kenyon Sadiq. You're one spot higher on Omar Cooper. But other than that, we're pretty much agreeing, which is, not great for content. But any thoughts here?
Well, it's not great for content, and it's not great for the rookie landscape. That's what this is a signal of. Like, when there's more talent, there's bigger disparities in where people have other people ranked. But the fact of the matter is, we got dealt one of the worst hands we could have possibly been dealt in all the combinations of draft capital and landing spot with these prospects. We got handed one of the worst hands, reflected by the fact that out of the 6 players in this tier, 4 of them are on 2 different teams. And they're all pass catchers. Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston in one offense. Omar Cooper and Kenyon Sadiq in another offense. On one side, you have a really bad offense that, yes, could be funneling a ton of targets to the two of them, but what are the quality? What is their upside in the next 3 to 4 years? It's very tough to tell. Then you have Kenyon Sadiq and Omar Cooper Jr., who are going to be behind Garrett Wilson and also in a bad offense. So, I mean, just completely muddying the waters of what we once had. The real winner here is Ty Simpson, getting drafted to the Rams and jumping all the way up into this tier. We have him at 8. This tier starts at 7. Seth, I don't know how much left there is to dissect of this tier. It's all kind of gross. But one question I do have for you is, what are your thoughts on somebody taking a Ty Simpson over Jadarian Price?
I don't think it's crazy at all. I think I alluded to it. The future, there's no certainty outside really the top 5 picks. Like, that is where it falls off. Even though I do like Casey Concepcion, I mean, Ty Simpson hit the jackpot, man. Like, Ty Simpson, neither one of us were a big fan of the talent, but I wasn't a huge fan of the talent of Jordan Love. I just think that Ty Simpson was a guy that needed more time. And essentially, he's going to get the redshirt year that he needed, that I thought, this guy needs to stay in college one more year. And essentially, that's what he's going to do, except better, even better. He's going to be in the NFL. And it wouldn't, if you are a quarterback needy team or if you are a rebuilding team, it would not be crazy at all to take him ahead of Jadarian Price. I would try to trade down, but if you can't, it's not crazy at all to take Ty Simpson at 6, regardless of what you think the Rams should have done with that pick. Then it's kind of choose your own guy. I like Casey Concepcion. That's why I have him ranked at 7. But you were talking about Stowers versus Kenyon Sadiq. And I do think that that's an interesting conversation, because there are so many of these teams, and you were talking about it, the Browns, the Jets. God, why did they have to take 2 of the pass catchers, the skill players that we liked? And I could definitely see Kenyon Sadiq in the short term not hitting right away. Eli Stowers in that offense, now without A.J. Brown in Philadelphia, he could be the more immediate, impactful player for sure. And I don't know if we're going to see a value shift. I don't know if some people are already projecting that. We are not, because I have Stowers at 12. You have Stowers at 12. And you have Sadiq at 10. I have Sadiq at 9. I think Sadiq's the more talented player, with more upside. So that's always going to be where my money is. But I think some people will see it differently, and I think that that's where we can take advantage in Dynasty. If somebody is going to take Stowers over Sadiq, I think that's where you can take advantage and potentially make an impactful move. Or, maybe they view Dallas Goedert as a roadblock, but that's a short term. Dallas Goedert, I believe, just has 1 year left on his deal. So I believe they drafted Eli Stowers as a Dallas Goedert potential replacement. So either way you stack it, like this tier is full of players who either have a ton of target competition or in a terrible situation or both, right? So for that reason, I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, you got to take Omar Cooper over Casey Concepcion. Like, to me, this is very much go get your guy season. And I think that's the theme really of the rest of our rankings. I mean, am I wrong?
No, not at all. And you really don't want go get your guy season to be at pick 7 of the draft, but that's where we are. And thank you for more eloquently communicating what I was starting to get at when I went into Sadiq and Eli Stowers.
Yeah, but I mean, and so we have Sadiq over Stowers, and you could definitely take Stowers over. I don't think it's a criminal offense, even though I kind of made a case against it from our perspective. Not,
but that's where we start getting into.
Yeah, we would love if you situation over Stowers over Sadiq. Yeah, exactly. And we're always going to bet on talent over situation, which is why I have Casey Concepcion and you have Casey Concepcion ranked ahead of, say, I don't know, Antonio. I guess that's not really a good example either.
Denzel
Boston's in a terrible situation. Anyway, let's move on to tier 4. Tier 4 starts with Jonah Coleman, and this is a pretty big tier. Antonio Williams, Ted Hurst, Nicholas Singleton, Chris Bell, Malachi Fields, and Max Clare are all in this tier. And our biggest disagreement, we don't really have a big disagreement here, but Malachi Fields, we have a 3 spot difference. I have him at 20, you have him at 17. Talk to me. Is there any one player in this tier that you want to focus on or talk about? Because really, we agree a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just going to free flow here and see where this goes. But again, it's just not great that this is what our tier is to start, the front half of the second round of rookie drafts. But again, there's a lot of guys that just have all these types of pros and cons, whether it be from their prospect profile or their landing spot or their draft capital. And you just got to take a talent bet and see who shines through. And there are some differences there, right? Where like I think Ted Hurst was better coming into this draft process than Antonio Williams, but Antonio Williams landed good draft capital and is going to be a starting receiver on this Commanders team, barring some sort of trade for Brandon Ayuk. But regardless, that would be mostly 2 receiver sets because Antonio Williams is set to be the slot receiver and Ayuk doesn't come into that role. I think there's so many quality targets for Antonio Williams. Same thing with Ted Hurst, who could step into this offense and be the wide receiver 3 short term and the wide receiver 2 longer term when Chris Godwin leaves. You have Nicholas Singleton, who has a new organization with no ties to Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, who I believe are both free agents after the end of this season. And yeah, he has 5th round draft capital, but we've seen it before, particularly with running backs. If he can make some noise on the field and get some opportunities, which he should, then there's no reason why he couldn't be leading this backfield. I mean, we've had Chase Brown leading the Bengals backfield for years. Isaiah Pacheco got multiple runs. Aaron Jones was a late round draft pick before he, came onto the scene in Green Bay. Then you have guys like Chris Bell who have decent talent profiles and good draft capital, but are in Miami with just an absolute wasteland. You have Malachi Fields, who I have a few spots ahead of you. I like him a lot. I think he could be the number 2 guy in New York. And I think the one thing that could hold them back is the play calling. And then you have Max Clare, who's, just came out of nowhere to be in the top 20 with the draft capital he got in Los Angeles. It's clear with his type of pass catching profile that that's what he's going to be looked at to be in that offense. And Jonah Coleman, who has his issues being behind J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. So it's just a mess.
Yeah, this is the messiest second round that I can remember ever. I mean, it's a bunch of long-term bets where you're just kind of hoping and praying. And you could definitely see, like, I love Ted Hurst. I think Ted Hurst is a great long-term bet. I think Antonio Williams is a great short-term bet and a great long-term bet, which is why I pushed him ahead of Ted Hurst a little bit. And I dug into the film a little bit more, and I've come around on Antonio Williams. But I still do like Ted Hurst, as evidenced by our ranking here at 15. We're way ahead of consensus. Jonah Coleman, same thing. Like, great long-term bet because we don't know how good RJ Harvey's going to be. We kind of saw glimpses of it last year, but they brought back J.K. Dobbins, right? And then there's Jonah Coleman kind of sitting there. If he can prove that he's better than both of those guys, which is very possible, then that's going to be a great shot to take. But again, there's no certainty with any of these players in this range here. So I have to think that you just kind of have to trust your analysis, and you got to go get your guy, and that's exactly what we're doing here.
But this is where, real quick before we transition, this is where the draft opens up, though. This is where, because you can get Antonio Williams and Ted Hurst in the late second round. You can get Nicholas Singleton in the late second, early third sometimes, depending on your draft pool. Malachi Fields, Chris Bell, Max. A lot of people, there's people, and it's all up and down this fourth and fifth tier, this second round, early third round. There's random people that your league just doesn't want. Like, I had a league that did not want Malachi Fields. I had multiple leagues that did not want Ted Hurst. We have Antonio Williams at 14, 2 picks after the second round, 2 picks into the second round. You can get him at the 5, 6, 7 slot in the second round. So this is where it really starts opening up and becomes very interesting. It is get your guy season, but this is where the rankings in the process is going to win out, because some people in this second round are going to become values and going to help rosters. And it's just, how seasoned is your process? I'm betting on ours being good, but I'm sure we're going to look back a year from now saying like, oh my gosh, we had Chris Bell at 17 or something to that effect. We didn't have Dejon Stribling at 8.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's going to happen from year to year. And I think that this is where, and you're right, this is where having multiple rookie picks and multiple bites at the apple can only help you. And I know that we got unlucky with this rookie class. We thought it was going to be a lot better. Some people went back to school, yada, yada, yada. But I was one of those poor dynasty managers that had a lot of second round picks in leagues. And it ended up kind of being a decent thing because, I can take a shot at Antonio Williams and Ted Hurst, and I have a couple third round picks. Ted Hurst slips to the third round. Maybe I can trade up a spot and I don't have to give up that much. And it really was all over the place. For advice for anybody who is going to be doing this rookie draft in the summertime, their rookie draft in the summertime, if I can speak, it truly does matter who's in your league, who do they like, and knowing this information before you get into your rookie draft is absolutely pivotal. And even then, you might not know. It's like the values are going to be all over the place. So the best thing that I can tell you to do is trust your process. Go get your guy when you're at that pick, because you're just not sure what's going to happen. Because I've seen Ted Hurst go as high as the middle of the second round. I've seen him fall to the late third, or middle to late third. Like, that's how wide a disparity that we're talking about here. So moving on to tier 5, which we're still in round 2. We're going to be heading into round 3. We have Emmett Johnson, Jeremy Bernard, Chris Brazzell, Dejon Stribling, Skylar Bell, and Zachariah Branch. Oh, and Mike Washington Jr. sneaks into this tier 2. Our biggest disagreement, which isn't really that big of a disagreement because, as we've said, it's kind of all over the place in this round 2 and early round 3, is Chris Brazzell. And my guess is that's because you're more of a cokehead than me, even though I would consider myself a cokehead too. But talk to me about Chris Brazzell, maybe why you're not so high on him.
Yeah, the way I liked Chris Brazzell and his analytics profile, I am afraid that Carolina drafted him as a pure field stretcher. And the reason for that is they kind of want to use him like an MVS, a Jalen Guyton. Random that those are the two field stretcher names that I think of first. But the point being, like, him and Stribling both, I see being true just field stretchers, open up the field. And if they had an extended Coker for that amount, I think my ranking would be a little bit different. But that speaks a lot of volumes as to what they think he brings to this offense. And then you factor in Tommy Tremble, and he's had some success as of late. I don't see where Brazzell fits into this offense significantly. I do think he has upside. Maybe 26 could have been potentially a little harsh here. But that's at the bottom of the tier. So, not terrible. But I prefer the likes of Jeremy Bernard, who could get some run, in this Steelers offense. He can have a real role there in the slot. I think Skylar Bell has more of an outside chance, a bit of homerism to be involved there in Buffalo. He could be that Z receiver opposite of DJ Moore, while in 3 receiver sets when I'm blanking on his name, Khalil Shakir heads to the slot. Zachariah Branch, a very interesting case. I'm not the biggest fan of the talent, but with the draft capital and the potential opportunity in Atlanta, I'm very keen on just seeing what happens there. When we're just looking at pure upside, like the upside of me being wrong about Zachariah Branch is just as high, if not higher, than any name on this list. I think Emmett Johnson's a really good look just for pure, potential handcuff value and the fact that Kenneth Walker's never really dominated a backfield. So what if he continues to not dominate a backfield, and a Kansas City offense that wants to save itself for the playoffs takes that same model of let's keep Kenneth Walker healthy, and Mike Washington Jr. being in, an offense with Ashton Genty, and maybe, if Ashton Genty's talent truly didn't translate to the next level, Mike Washington could have like a Tyler Algier-esque, thorn in his side type of role. So in context to the rest of the tiers, that's why I have Brazzell and Stribling, on the lower end.
Yeah, and I'm not as high on Stribling either, but I mean, there is the possibility too, and this is just me being stubborn. If I had to make a case for Stribling, it's the 49ers are also going to be stubborn in the fact that they want to prove that Stribling was worth the pick. And they are in need of a future producers at wide receiver, because I know they signed Mike Evans, but he's older. Ricky Pearsall has dealt with injuries. So, but I just I just don't get the player, and I just don't really understand the 49ers and why they draft the players they do, but that's a whole nother case in point. If you're just going by draft capital, he probably, he's probably higher for some other people, not us, because we're not big fans of the talent. And then I think you're right on just about this tier is very similar to the tier before, in the sense that these are all guys in situations where they're the wide receiver 3 or 4, the RB2 in the case of Mike Washington. It just nothing really shook out our way in this rookie draft. We just wanted somebody to land well, and I suppose there was a few people early on that landed pretty good, but we're gonna keep going here into tier 6, and this probably won't take as long, but it starts with Carson Beck, Elijah Surratt, Katron Allen, Kalen Black, Jacoby Lane, Oscar Delp, Drew Aller, Bryce Lance, Damon Claiborne, and that is tier 6. And I do want to make a case for somebody in this tier 6 because I kept finding myself, and I don't know about you, I kept finding myself taking Katron Allen over and over and over again because I wanted a piece of this Washington offense. It's the same reason why I'm high on Antonio Williams. They need playmakers. And Katron Allen in college was really good. He outplayed Nicholas Singleton, who's a 5-star recruit, this past year. And he's not flashy, but inside the tackles, I think he does what you need him to do. And for that reason, I think Washington is going to end up using this guy. Again, it's going to be some gross committee. I know Ja'Cory Krosky-Mara is probably going to be the lead running back. Rachaad White is probably going to catch passes out of the backfield. But talent-wise, you can't tell me that Katron Allen is way far behind those guys. And I think he has the potential to be more in the NFL. I think he fits the traditional like bell cow style running back. He's not much of a pass catcher, but on early downs in the red zone, he proved in college that he can get the job done. And I'm telling you, if there's a guy in this tier 6 in round 3 that I kept finding myself taking over and over again, it was him. It was Katron Allen. But what are your thoughts? And who's a guy in this tier 6, or we could even extend it to tier 7, who you kept finding yourself take over and over and over again? And maybe we can stick to tier 6, I guess, and we'll maybe ask the same question in tier 7. That sounds fun.
Yeah, 7's a little too big, I think. But Katron Allen's an interesting one. I didn't get my hands on him as much as I would have liked to, but we talk on the show a lot about your player takes can be different, but there's a certain set of situations that you need to be targeting. And if you are targeting the right situations, your player takes are going to be different, but over the course of time, you're going to find yourself succeeding. And this is, like you said, the Washington offense. Like, I want to take a shot on Antonio Williams. If I'm a win now team, I could see myself taking a shot on Terry McLaurin, to be completely honest with you, but that's a separate discussion. Katron Allen, Rachaad White, Ja'Cory Krosky-Mara, all pretty cheap in terms of the relative price. If you have reasons to believe to go to one or the other, that's perfectly fine. But you have the right idea to where this is a very ambiguous situation in an offense that, regardless, we expect to be scoring points. So we want to have people who are involved in that. And Katron Allen, I think, is a great example of somebody who we have ranked, I believe, higher than ADP, depending on your league. I know I was able to get him beyond pick 29 in some of my other drafts. But you have a guy who I could very easily see him being the early down back and Rachaad White being the third down, long down and distance, 2-minute drill, change of pace kind of player. So why not take a shot on him? He's a guy who I've been eyeing a lot. But two players that I've gotten a lot of are Carson Beck and Drew Aller. Because primarily Carson Beck, and I hate it. I don't like the talent that much of Carson Beck, but I'm pretty confident he's going to start this year. And I'm actually very confident because their current starting quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, holding out. So as of right now, Carson Beck is the effective quarterback 1. And you know what? Side note, I agree with Jacoby Brissett. He did his best effort to get himself a longer-term commitment and some more guaranteed money at this point in his career. I think he earned it. I understand not wanting to come back out until some of that is secured. Probably not going to happen, but I understand where he's coming from. Anyway, Carson Beck, we're in a super flex league with a quarterback that's going to start. All right, you could pitch me taking Carson Beck earlier than 27, and I could get behind it. I may not want to do it myself, depending on how high we want to get. But you're telling me 3-1, I could take Carson Beck and get a super flex quarterback that's going to start? I mean, if you just did that over the course of all these draft classes, just took the value on the quarterback that is going further than he should, Bo Nix, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck. Yeah, you might get a Kenny Pickett and a Cam Ward in there or a Malik Willis, that stink it up. but over time, you're going to stack up more Bo Nixes and more Jackson Darts and Tyler Shucks than you are the opposite. And when that hits, take a look at this tier, man. Like, are you going to take Kalen Black over Carson Beck? Probably not. Probably not. Kalen Black has some asymmetrical upside within, if CMC goes down, but Jacoby Lane, Oscar Delp, it's just hard to take Carson Beck over those guys. And that's why we have him ranked as high as we do.
Yeah, one more guy that I kept finding myself taking just because I liked him was Bryce Lance, but that is and I like the situation with the Saints, but and how he could potentially fit into their offense. But I agree with you, Carson Beck in that Arizona Cardinals system, you just never know. And taking high upside shots on quarterbacks, it's not a bad way to go. And let's finish it out with the biggest tier 7 ever. You're gonna have to take a deep breath. Cade Klubnik, Seth McGowan, Adam Randall, Eli Raridan, Brennan Thompson, Garrett Nussmeier, Cole Payton, Kevin Coleman Jr., Jeff Caldwell, Xavier Thomas, Taylon Green, Justin Jolie, Eli Heidenreich, Deion Burks, and Jam Miller rounds it out at 50. So Matt Babich, is there anybody that you would be pounding the table for, or somebody that you found yourself repeatedly taking in this tier?
It's unfortunately Cade Klubnik. just I look at all these players and I'm like, where is my money best being spent? And that is just taking a shot on a quarterback who at one time had first round aspirations on a team that is probably not going to be great. And if Geno Smith this year is Geno Smith last year, we're going to see Cade Klubnik. And as long as he's a little bit different, and there's a reason why he's in tier 7 is because we believe that the New York Jets are going to be on a reroll next year for a quarterback. Like they're going to go right back to the well. So not as much runway in terms of his value insulation, but still
Geno Smith popping up in the news too with accused of aggravated assault. I don't know if you saw that or not, but anyway,
this is the nothing ever happens league. So I'll react to news there when there's news to react to. But it's the New. I was going to say it's the New York Jets. It's New York, and it's the Jets. If Geno is not performing and this team is losing, excuse me, beer hiccups, Cade Klubnik is going to be called on. The fans are going to be clamoring to give Cade a shot. I can't remember who they drafted last year, but they even gave him a shot. It was some of the most disgusting football. It's so bad that I forgot his name in total. He played like one game. It was a disaster. But then, look, again, get your guy season. Seth McGowan, Adam Randall, 2 running backs that you could take a shot on. Damon Claiborne is someone who we didn't talk about, just above in tier 6. That's another running back you can throw a dart on. Eli Heidenreich. You go into some of these receivers like Brennan Thompson, who I believe is a field stretcher. That's why I have him ranked so much lower than you. Kevin Coleman, Xavier Thomas, Deion Burks, some good wide receivers to choose from with some upside. Justin Jolly and Eli Raridan at tight end have some upside at the tight end position. And then a couple other quarterbacks like Garrett Nussmeier and Taylon Green. You could pretty much order those guys in every which way, and I could kind of see it, barring maybe like a Heidenreich going above like Seth McGowan and Adam Randall and jumping to the top of the tier. But there's a lot of ways you can skin this cat, and we kind of go back to get your guy season on. If you really think Xavier Thomas can crack through this Bears roster, then go for it. It's whatever your process is here. I can kind of get behind.
There's 2 guys in this tier, maybe 3, that I found myself repeatedly clicking the button on. One of them was Adam Randall because of the prototype of the player, and obviously he's not Derrick Henry, but he would figure to be the 1-for-1 replacement if Derrick Henry misses time, which I know Derrick Henry never does, just based on, again, his size and his profile. I found that an interesting pick. Also, you mentioned it, Xavier Thomas. Apparently, and I know I'm the Bears homer on this channel, apparently Xavier Thomas was a Ben Johnson pick, and I trust Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson's one of the best play callers in the NFL. So if he wanted Xavier Thomas that bad in round 3, I'm going to put my faith in Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson we trust. And then Brennan Thompson, again, another play caller who was pounding the table for a weapon. Mike McDaniel wanted Brennan Thompson. And on the surface, you go, okay, this feels like a wide receiver who's in a jumbled mess of a wide receiver room with Trey Harris, Quentin Johnson, Ladd McConkey in the slot. They're going to run the ball a lot, but this is also an offense I think that you're going to want pieces of, and you just never know how a new play caller feels about the weapons there. So if he wanted Brennan Thompson bad enough, who actually Brennan Thompson, even though he's a sub 160 pounds, he's an outside wide receiver. He played 80+% of his snaps out wide in college. So that's going to be a fascinating thing to watch, at least for me, because I was also a big Brennan Thompson fan. So those are 3 guys that I kept hitting the button on as, the rookie drafts were rounding out. And some other guys, you mentioned some of them that I thought were interesting. Eli Heidenreich was a guy that I had my eye on. Doesn't get the best draft capital. Deion Burks, another interesting player that wound up in Indianapolis that I think is also worth stashing. And Jeff Caldwell. Kansas City, if they miss Rashee Rice, if he misses any time, and we all know that's very possible given the state of Rashee Rice, just never know what he's going to do. They're in trouble. They're going to need somebody to step up. And I don't know if that's going to be Jeff Caldwell or not. It could be Jalen Broyles. It could be Tyquan Thornton, probably most likely Tyquan Thornton. But I think there's a good chance that Jeff Caldwell is going to get an opportunity. And sometimes for somebody who's that much of an athletic freak, that's all they need. So again, those are just some names I would throw out there in this range. And that is going to do it. We did it. Top 50 rookie rankings, less than an hour. Matt Babich, any words of wisdom? Did your bets hit? How you feeling?
Astros did it. They hit
the Astros. I knew that's what you were checking. I knew I couldn't get your full attention for the entire podcast.
I always have my full attention on the entire podcast. It's 98% and the little 2% when I'm looking over to see the 3-run home run or the 2-run home run in the the 3-run home run in the top of the 11th inning. My words of wisdom would be to root for the USA in the World Cup. I'm going to keep saying it. Seth, I don't think we could do it this year, but we might be able to do it this year. And I said it the last time we were here, and it still amazes me, all these videos of, tourists coming over to America and sharing with us and reminding us all what makes us and what makes our country great. And it's not, the politicians, it's not the media, it's not the people who want us to hate each other. It's us. It's going out and having a beer. It's showing a Japanese tourist what splitting the G means, like drinking a Guinness, and then his team scores right afterwards. It's Texas barbecue. It's Kansas City barbecue, which I, even living in Texas, don't tell anyone this, I think is better than Texas barbecue.
Oh, wow.
But there's more people in Dallas, so we're getting a lot of the barbecue love here. But all these things that we take for granted here have been, a source of awe for people around the world. And everyone's been so friendly. It's so awesome to see all these different cultures blending, and some would say it's what America was founded on, and it's what makes us great. And so just take some time to even just catch up on TikTok or something, or social media, just to see this positivity that's been spread. Even if you can't stomach soccer, try and get a dose of the toxic positivity that has been the World Cup so far. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I used to be a anti-soccer curmudgeon, like, you know, how can a game end in a tie? Get off my lawn type of person. And I have to admit, before everybody here on the watching, that I've very much enjoyed the World Cup. I think that this is the best I've ever seen that the United States look that I've seen in my limited
100%.
experience watching the United States. So again, they're probably not going to win the whole thing, but it's soccer, man. It's football. You just never know what can happen. So my wife and I are going to be headed down on Thursday to a Netherlands watch party, which I think will
that'll
be
so
off
much
the
fun.
chain here in Kansas City. We're going with some friends. And they make a whole deal. Like they make a whole the fans around that have come here for the World Cup. They make a whole, like, they take a party bus down. If they're going to the game, they take the bus there. If they're just going to the watch party, obviously they make a whole deal out of it. It's really cool. So yeah, watch the World Cup. I've been really enjoying it. And I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Dynasty Roundtable. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know what you think of our rankings. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, the alarm bell, do all the things. And as we all know, World Cup or no World Cup, I guarantee you nobody's talking about Aaron Rodgers on the World Cup because nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers, nor should they. And until next time, be good, everybody, and we will see you later.